as I said, it is a joy to drive. It always gets lots of attention. It is quite interesting to pull up at McDonald's in it. Usually get what you want and some fairly prompt service. Hi, my name's Tom, and this is my 1962 Ferret Scout Car Mark II. Ferret Scout Car was designed and produced by Daimler in the UK between 1951 and 1971. So quite a long series of production there. Range from the Mark I all the way up to the experimental Mark V. Was actively employed by the British Army between 1952 and used all the way up into the first Desert Storm invasion of Iraq, admittedly in very few numbers. Currently only used by select governments such as Myanmar in Southeast Asia. The Ferret was phased out of most frontline armies in the late 1970s. The vehicle was originally developed from the highly successful Daimler Scout Car of World War II, and a number of improvements were made over that successful model to make it the machine that it is today. It weighs in at around about 3.8 tonnes, but fully loaded up and ready for combat will come in at around about 4.2 to 4.3 tonnes, depending on configuration and what additional extras have been put in place. The vehicle is powered by a Rolls-Royce B60 4.2 6-litre straight six engine. Petrol powered, of course, being British at the time, so that's a nice thirsty 35 litres per 100 kilometres, although you will end up getting around about 42 litres per 100 if you decide to take it off-road. So this thing spends most of its time on road. Even though it's got a bit of weight about it, it is quite nimble off-road. Won't be something that you take out rock crawling, but it was designed for high-speed reconnaissance off paved roads, so it will get close to its top speed in most scenarios. Very soft and forgiving suspension with a lot of travel, even though it does have a low clearance, which limits some of the terrain that it can take. Top speed is around about 93 kilometres an hour, forward and reverse. I haven't been game enough to take it in reverse yet at that speed. But again, that's really a product of the lessons learned from World War II, where it was a reconnaissance by speed rather than a reconnaissance by firepower philosophy that was employed by the British Army, and that remained in place all the way up into the mid-90s, when the successor of the Ferret, the Fox, was phased out of service. The machine is ballistically rated for medium machine gun fire. Armour protection ranges from 6mm all the way up to around about 20mm, so that gives it most of its weight. The vehicle was used in a number of roles, primarily as armoured reconnaissance elements for tank regiments, and it was also used as a divisional HQ deployable asset for rebroadcasting facilities. So when a forward element is running out of contact with divisional HQ, they'd send in a low profile unit such as the Ferret, armed with two high powered radios, and it would be able to establish contact with that forward element and relay the messages back to divisional HQ automatically. So that made it a fairly versatile machine. There were several several marks of machine that came out. The original Mark 1 was a liaison vehicle, so unlike mine, which is configured as a Mark 2, it didn't have a turret. So that enabled it to have a very low profile silhouette, which made it excellent for reconnaissance, observation, and also coordinating with nearby armoured elements. They gave it a height of only about 1.5 metres, which made it very, very easy to conceal with minimal effort. Several revolutions of a machine came to be over its years. The Mark II, as you see behind me, was developed in around about 2 years after it originally hit the British Army, and that was in response to the Brits realising that the lack of a turret didn't really give a lot of overhead protection from shell fire, sniper rounds, etc. So the turret was developed, and that was the predominant configuration of the machine throughout its service life. And indeed, the version most used by the Australian Army, we purchased around about 250 machines in the early 50s, and they look just like this one with the Mark II turret. Towards the end of its service life, features such as vigilante anti-tank missiles were trialled and used as a bit of a stopgap until the combat vehicle reconnaissance tracked series of vehicles ended up coming out in the 70s, and they were able to provide a bit more mobility off-road, more firepower, and that sort of really spelt the demise of the Ferret in frontline combat around the world. When I say it was used around the world, it was used in many continents by many armies, frontline armies, third world armies, insurgencies even got their hands on them. It was used extensively by the British Army in places like Aden for peacekeeping duties. It was also used in Cyprus, Greece for peacekeeping duties as part of UN attachments. So on the internet you will see a lot of white ferrets getting around there, and that is a genuine configuration there. They were used extensively by the UN, by both the British and the Canadian armies. Commonwealth Field Forces were the predominant users of the Ferret, although, as I said, they did find their way down into African countries as well. The Rhodesian Army also used them, as did the South Africans at a brief point in time, and you get some very interesting modifications that were employed by those countries, such as using recoilless rifles bolted onto the turrets to give them a bit more firepower. Performance-wise, what else can I say? The machine handles beautifully on and off-road. Its steering is very light, except if you're trying to turn it around in a tight circle at low speed, because it does have no power steering and rather heavy tyres. But otherwise, it performs very, very well. Not so much known for their braking power. This is a 4.3 tonne machine with unassisted brake drums, so it does take a little bit of pulling up, constantly having to sort of think around about 200-300 metres in advance when you think about stopping. But they were built for going fast forwards and backwards, not for stopping. Off-road wise, the machine can also easily ford about 900 millimetres of water unprepared, which is pretty interesting considering it's a petrol engine. The British developed the Rolls-Royce engine specifically around battlefield use and protecting against RF interference and water by fully sealing all of the ignition leads, spark plugs, distributor, spark plugs themselves. Everything is protected against water ingress and is fully shielded so that it doesn't interfere with the VHF radios of the time, which were quite susceptible to high voltages generated by the ignition coils. The distributor is also positively charged atmospherically wise at all times via the air intake, so again giving it some very good resistance to water ingress. Furthermore, if water does enter the hull, the fan has been specifically designed around like an impeller or a turbine. It's cast aluminium blades designed to turn through water without breaking or causing undue wear of the bearings. So yeah, it'll basically keep on running until the fighting compartment fills up with water and the personnel are forced to evacuate. Armament wise, as with any reconnaissance vehicle, if you're using your armament, you're in a lot of trouble. So the Ferret was only equipped with a medium machine gun. Several medium machine guns were used throughout its life. It started out with the good old Bren light machine gun from World War II days, mounted in a pintle on top of the vehicle, remembering that was the turretless version. And then as it progressed through to the turret, it used a M1919 30 caliber machine gun chambered in 7.62 by 51 NATO, and that's a similar configuration to what you see on mine. So driving the Ferret on a day-to-day basis, it's not my daily drive, but like anything, it does like to get out and about. It keeps it in tip-top mechanical shape, stops oil seals from leaking as much. Although being British, if it's not leaking, it means you're probably out of oil, which is not necessarily a good thing. I love driving it. Basically, it is a joy to drive, and there is nothing better than pulling up and getting a coffee and seeing fathers and sons, mums and dads with kids in tow coming in to have a good look at it, and watching the kids basically jump for joy when they get told, yeah, climb on over it, no worries, there's nothing you can do to hurt it. It is really great. As far as I'm concerned, keeping a little bit of history alive, and that's one of the reasons why I bought it. Otherwise, it is really awesome to be able to very, very occasionally come across chaps who used to drive these in the service. The reactions are usually one of absolute amazement that A, they're seeing a Ferret, and B, they can see one that can get on the road. So getting those guys to jump up in the turret and go for a bit of a spin, look, it's fantastic. It takes really is a trip down memory lane for those ex-servicemen, and it's just one little thing that can be done to I suppose give back a bit and show the appreciation, because these machines, they were made for these machines, they were made for fighting. So that's something that we should always remember when we see these things out there. But as I said, it is a joy to drive. It always gets lots of attention. It is quite interesting to pull up at McDonald's in it. Usually get what you want and some fairly prompt service.